Hey everyone, thanks for joining today. This is a very special one because episode 18, I believe that's what we're up to today, is happening in our first video podcast. So that's pretty damn cool. Yes, it's in my basement. I guess this is how everyone starts. Um, that's just what we got going today. So eventually we'll get something really good. Nice setup eventually. Who knows? But whatever. Today we got a really, really big show. Reason why it's big, it's because it goes into something very, very deep. And as we continue on with the podcast, we'll get right into it. So, first thing we got to know is we run things a little different. Awaken24 podcast isn't about the usual stick to the commercial, commonly known concepts of cultivation, spirituality, and all this esoteric stuff. This is straight talk, basically. We're trying to get to the meat and potatoes, right to the core of what it is to cultivate the mind. I've been practicing for over 37 years, Buddhist and Taoist cultivation. And with that, I bring to you an unbiased approach. It's just method and practice. So today we got a lot to unpack. And as we're going through today's episode, we're going to do something called a perspectives check. This is going to be new. And that's where we pause and strip away the noise, look directly at what we've been handed as truth to see if it actually holds up. Right? We want to make sure things hold up to water. So I've been on a mission since the 90s. I told myself back then that I have to strip away all these veils of spiritual commercialism and let those who need to know the truth. And to do that, I had to investigate, question, and run trial and error on many of the spiritual fads that were circulating back then. And the same ones that have simply evolved and made their way into our present time. Some things, you have to test directly, and some things you don't. Because after cultivation, you develop eyes to see nonsense, bullshit, basically, coming from a mile away. So, how do you know if you're a part of the need to know group? It's simple. The message just simply resonates with you. And it's fine if it doesn't, so just don't force it. Don't wrestle with it, and just move on. The whole premise of Awaken24 is clarity, anyway. And clarity comes from questioning your own mind, understanding the causes and conditions behind your cyclic sensory habits. And either having awakened to your true nature or at least cultivating sincerely in that direction, that's the work. That's exactly what we're here to talk about. Excellent. So I'm recording on two different devices. So if you see my eyes go up and down, I'm looking at my laptop and I'm looking at the phone. I also prepare all my podcasts with written work, 7 to 10 pages, maybe 15, depends on how deep I want to go into a specific topic. And I have it running in front of me. So if you see my eyes go down, yes, I'm looking at the other camera, but I'm also reading what I've written to you. When I go on tangents like this, I'm speaking straight from that moment. The reason why I like to put things down in written word is I take a lot of time to make sure what I'm saying is sticking directly and straight up to the point. I can run into tangents here. I can go over there, circle back around, and get right back to the core, but I don't like to run and waste your time. So I like to put things down into a very concise, you know, manner. So bear with me. Of course, stuff like this, you want to make sure there is no extra filler, you know, cop out talk. I don't like to fill things just for the sake of it. So there you have it. So we're going to look at something interesting. This is diet that supports spiritual practice. This is asked to me many, many times over the years. What's the diet I should have? And, we got to deal with one of the biggest confusions in the world of spirituality right now is that the idea within a so-called spiritual life, because it's deeply misunderstood. There's a lot of push and pull around this topic because Compassion gets confused with personal psychology, cultural conditioning, traditions, and individual physical needs. Many people assume that to be spiritual means to be vegan because spirituality is equated with doing no harm. So, on the surface, that sounds noble, but when examined honestly, this idea fails to meet the realities of human physiology. The belief that spiritual means doing no harm to other living beings quickly runs into a contradiction because it ignores the principles of doing no harm to oneself. From there, things spiral into karma debates about killing, who killed the animal, who butchered it, who sold it, who ate it, and then it loops back around to the eater as someone who indirectly supports killing. This kind of thinking becomes endless, circular, ultimately trivial. So, attaching to it is not only unhelpful, but it becomes detrimental. And the truth is simple, there's no spiritual diet. The idea that there is one or one does exist is entirely in the mind of the person imagining it. And that brings me to this idea, this story. Back in China, when I lived in China, 2013, I was practicing Tai Chi with my teacher, Tai Chi Chuan. And I asked him, I was like, is there a diet or specific lifestyle associated to Tai Chi? It's not my first time practicing Tai Chi Chuan. I've been practicing since I think around 2001. I started. And there was never a talk of a spiritual diet, but that was in the commercialist fads of spiritualism back then. And I asked my teacher, and he looks at me and he says, no, just eat. Just eat and practice. There's no particular diet, and you have to look at what your body needs and what's going to help you practice and succeed in what you're doing. So that kind of, you know, answered a lot of questions for me back then. But it's really up to the person. What makes you feel good, you got to do it. A person can draw though from the Buddhist teachings, on the vow of non-killing and live strictly by that principle. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But the most important factor in applying any teaching is the condition of the individual. Okay. And that includes the structure of their mind, their sensory habits, their culture, their traditions, and their physical constitution. Teachings are not meant to override reality. They're meant to clarify it. A lot of self-introspection. That's what we're supposed to do. What often sneaks in is a distorted worldview where people begin to believe that Earth is not humanity's home, but only the home of animals and non-human beings. And humans are then usually cast as inherently evil, something that should suffer or disappear for the sake of everything else. And this perspective is fundamentally flawed and only deepens separation, the view of separation. Humans, animals, plants, all beings arise from causes and conditions. They appear as they appear, and they pass as they pass. And that's it. Humans are born in this world just as other beings are. And like it or not, this planet is our home as well. The ebb and flow is the thing that affects everything equally. That's your equality right there. Humans live differently than animals, and they're not required to mimic other animals. People do. They think they're virtuous, but it's not the case. Even if someone chooses to do so, it does not make them more inherently realized or more spiritual, which brings us back to the idea of diet. Okay. And there's no spiritual diet. If the way you eat allows you to feel healthy, stable, clear, and capable of cultivating, and you cultivate peacefully and deeply, then that's the right way for you to eat. So if your diet causes weakness, illness, mental fog, or instability, it's definitely directly going to interfere with your cultivation. In that case, continuing that diet is not virtuous at all. It's self-harm disguised as principle. I'll speak from direct experience here. In my early 20s, I attempted a vegan lifestyle. And before that, I was strong in body, energy, and mind. Within 6 months, I became skin and bones. My sleep deteriorated, my joints hurt, I had frequent headaches, my cognitive clarity declined. Everything was just nasty. And people could argue that I did it wrong. You did it wrong. You didn't eat the right way. But I'll be blunt, that kind of response is often condescending and self-serving. It's a way to protect identity, not to address reality. And there's a lot of that going on today. So the truth is that my body and mind just don't function well on a plant-based diet. And beyond that, plants are living beings as well. They live, they carry life, energy, and responsiveness, just like anything else. They experience existence differently, though, not through the same sensory frameworks us humans use. But that doesn't mean they're exempt from suffering or impact anyway. We just lack the sensitivity to recognize it unless we truly know how to listen and observe them. Everything we do generates causes. Every cause becomes an action. Every action becomes another cause. And the cycle is endless and often misunderstood. For a cultivator to walk the path of awakening and realizing its true nature, the focus is not obsession over outcomes, but clarity in causes. See, outcomes and causes are not separate. But as practitioners, cultivators, we take causes seriously because the seeds we plant are fruits we inevitably receive. So there's one big thing we must understand very clearly. And that is, spirituality is not about rigid rules, not about moral performance or borrowed identities. It's about clarity, responsibility, and alignment with reality. Eat in a way that supports your health, your stability, your capacity to cultivate sincerely. Anything else is just another story the mind tells itself. You really got to get clear there. You can't just jump on a fad or jump on anything that sounds good and assume it's going to be right for you. You have to test it slowly. The conditions of your mind and your body have to acclimate. You can cultivate for that particular diet or for any particular path. You just have to do it gradually and allow your body to get used to it, allow your mind to get used to it. That means become disciplined in it and become clear on how you're going to do it, be consistent, and see if there's any good results from it for you. Can't just say, I'm going to do it now because in the future I'll be better off for it. You might be sick in the future. You could be mentally hurt. You could be emotionally hurt. You could be physically hurt. So you've got to be really careful on what kind of path you take when it comes to the complexities of living. So this is the new part of the podcast I want to start introducing called the perspectives check. So we just jump off the rails for a little bit, run into one specific idea, and go right back to what we're doing because it ties all together. And yeah, I like that idea. So, with our perspectives check, a lot of people today look for the aesthetics in order to believe something is profound. They look for symbols of authority when it comes to so-called spiritual teachers. The more someone looks the part, the more believable they seem. And what's that look? You know what I'm going to say? The monk's clothing, the flowing robes, the earth-toned clothes, incense, oils, prayer beads, crystals, soft voices, and carefully curated environments that feel professional, mystical, monastic. I mean, I'm in my basement. Concrete walls, wooden rafters, concrete floor. It's cold. I have my heat going. Nothing looks really beautiful. And why should you take my word for anything? You don't know me. I can tell you what I've been doing for the last 37 years of my life in terms of cultivation. I don't look to convince. If what I say clicks, it clicks. You have questions, I'll answer without any filler talk. That's it. I've been through the run of the mill gurus out there, just mouthpieces, talking about this and that and this virtue and that lofty ideal without any, real substance. I've seen tons of different methodologies out there, and they bring no real substance. I'm not putting anyone's particular practice down because your path is your own. However, I'll give my observation that what I've seen over the last 37 years is whatever. Stick to sutras, texts, then go and do self-introspection. Be all right for the most part. My opinion. People adorn themselves with what most associate as like a spiritual authority. And they put the setting around themselves to reinforce it. So the appearance alone is enough for many to assume that there's truth being spoken. But the symbol of authority doesn't stop there. There's lifestyle symbols as well. You know, Tai Chi, yoga, Qigong, veganism, off-grid living, Wicca, New Age spirituality, and other similar paths. Let me be clear, there's nothing wrong with any of these things at all. Really, there's not. The issue is the association. The belief that you must have these things in your life in order to be spiritually sound, and the belief that without them you can't be taken seriously. On top of that, there's an assumption that anyone who practices these things automatically has insight into reality, into the spiritual world, or into like the other inner workings of the universe. What often comes from this is cult-like behavior and repetition of borrowed ideas stitched together from different religions and philosophies to fit a convincing narrative. Yeah, it all sounds true. Feels true. But it's not realized. It's not realized truth. And true realization comes from doing the work of investigating the mind, from turning the senses inward, untangling them, seeing right through their illusion, and awakening to one's true nature. The Buddha's discourses, they point to this in many ways. And yes, there are infinite ways it could be done. When we say infinite ways, we're talking about unbiased methodology, not religious ideology. That distinction really does matter. Today, many people consume spirituality through short form content, AI generated videos, soft voiceovers, captions that start with the Buddha said this, or in Taoism it is taught. Most of the time, what's being presented is not even close to Buddhism or Taoism, or whatever they actually teach. We're easily taken by the beautiful visuals, the calming narratives. We don't second guess the message. We don't second guess the message. And why? Because it sounds logical. It flows in a way that resembles real teachings. But it's like a game of telephone. But the time the message actually reaches you, very little of the original meaning is there. It's like seeing flowers on a distant tree, or like smelling a fragrance carried by the wind, but you can't find the flower itself. Once a cultivator reaches clarity and refines it to the point it is no longer a state, but simply the way things are seen, concepts and such, they become much more easier to see through. So much easier. The real difference in between agreeing that something makes sense and holding it up against realized unbiased truth. That's really like the difference between it. There is a difference between thinking you're realized, or that you've realized something, and actually being realized or realizing it. The moment we try to describe realization way too much, we plant the seeds for imagination. People begin to believe they've attained something simply because they can picture it. This is why cultivators must be careful with what they consume online. If you want to know what the Buddha said, go to a sutra. Read it with commentary. Read more than one commentary if needed. There's no rush towards enlightenment. If it was something that could be rushed, you'd have gotten there already. No one can make you enlightened either. If they could, every Buddha would have did that already, and everyone would be a realized Buddha. Now, here's the irony of cultivation itself. All the information needed for realization already exists in Buddhist and Taoist texts. And the real obstacle is believing that a sudden epiphany or an intellectual understanding is enough, and it's not. Intellectual understanding is a very small part of the path. Maybe the smallest part. A cultivator must know their mind. Cultivator must know their own mind. They must know their illusions, their frameworks that they impose on themselves and the world. Very important. And to cultivate is to take full responsibility for your mind, your body, and your speech. That's where the real work begins. Because that's really the golden nugget here. That cultivation, if you want to call it spiritual cultivation, mind cultivation, cultivation of awakening to the true nature or universal creamy oneness or whatever, it's your own. It's your own. It's yours alone. It's for you. You are the one to toil through your mind. You are the one to really make a difference in your life, shape the world around you according to how you're going to live in that world. Do things that equate the outcomes you're looking for, plant the right seeds. It's your responsibility. It's no one else's business. That's really it. So now here's a funny thing. I get asked, am I supposed to feel peaceful all the time with spirituality, cultivation? Funny enough, I've been seeing videos about this all over the place. Oh, when you go and first get spiritually awakened, everything's turmoil and no one tells you this. Well, you know what? That's true. When you do your own individual work, you do self-introspection, you wake up to that truth within you, you go through your own mind. It's not supposed to be peaceful. It's like this idea of peace all the time it doesn't fit. It's like a commercial framework that gets sold as spirituality in those happy, safe spaces. People love to associate with being spiritual. They're not what real cultivators of the way actually know as spiritual. It's not even a thing. In fact, most cultivators use the word spiritual very sparingly. And when it is used, it's often only as a way of pointing towards something subtle, something not physically tangible, or to momentarily describe a shift in perspective. It was never meant to define an identity, a lifestyle, or a personality. And it's important to understand this clearly that when someone genuinely turns inward, all hell breaks loose. Uh, take monks as an example. When a person becomes a monk, they renounce participation in ordinary social life. But here's the part no one talks about, people don't like to talk about, is that they're still human. They carry years, sometimes decades of conditioning with them into the monastery. The mind doesn't just disappear because they put robes on, took vows, and that's it. No, no, no. They bring their habits, their fears, their desires, the sensory conditioning with them, everything that shapes the world they knew and the world they're going to be knowing. So, yes, someone may hold the title of a monk, but that doesn't mean they're free from conditions. They still have to cultivate the mind to reveal their true nature, just like everyone else. So, what's that actually look like? Means that going inwards, while it looks peaceful outside, all that one and all that stuff, it's a war zone inside. Thoughts, emotions, memories, sensory habits all arise at once, and old patterns surface. The mind resists, the body aches, self-talk becomes harsh. Start talking yourself down. Frustration, boredom, sadness, doubt, all of these things start to creep out all over the place. You get moments of bliss here and there, sure, happiness, joy, and clarity, but here's the part people don't want to hear, and it doesn't stay that way. It doesn't just become all of a sudden peaceful and happy, and now you know the ways of everything, and everything is good. The experience swings back. The cycle repeats. It goes up and down again and again until it doesn't. Some days practice feels clear, some days it feels heavy, some sitting days, sitting meditation feels really profound, and some feel like nothing's happening at all and you're not getting anywhere. It can last for a while too. But that's where the real cultivation begins. The inward path is just not all sunshine and roses. It's not fairy dust and cotton candy clouds. It's direct confrontation with both what you like about yourself and what you don't like about yourself. It's the breaking down of your self-image, your assumptions, your stories about who you think you are and how the world should be. You can stay with that process, but if you can stay with that process, you don't run from it. You don't replace it with a prettier narrative. Something real starts to reveal itself. And that revelation doesn't arrive all at once, it shows up in pieces. And according to your effort, your consistency, and the causes you continue to nourish. Very important. And that's exactly why the spiritual persona has become such a powerful hook in commercial spiritual world. It gives people a sense of belonging. It gives them a role to play. It lets them decorate the self instead of dismantling it. And that's the trap. Because the moment spirituality becomes about image or identity or appearing awakened, it stops being a path of realization and turns into another into another way to reinforce the very self it claims to transcend. So let's get it clear. Spirituality is not identity, it's not lifestyle, it's not aesthetic, it's not a mood or a permanent emotional state. It's perspective. Spirituality is perspective. It's the way you see the mind, it's the way you understand causes and conditions, it's the recognition that nothing in your life is separate from the field in which you operate in your awareness. Peace and chaos, clarity, confusion, joy, and frustration all arise from the same place. What changes is not the world, but the framework through which you're perceiving it. If spirituality feels like something you put on, something you perform, something you need to protect, then it's not spirituality. It's another level of self image. Real spirituality, not just say real spirituality, it's not about feeling good, it's about seeing clearly. And that clarity doesn't come from avoiding life, doesn't avoid discomfort. The internal turbulence you get comes from meeting them with direct grace. You meet them directly without grasping, without resistance, without pretending they shouldn't be there. And this is where the misunderstanding clears. Spirituality was never meant to feel peaceful all the time. Peace is not the definition, it's a byproduct that appears when conditions align. What spirituality actually points to is clarity, not comfort. So when people expect spirituality to feel calm, safe, and pleasant, they're already operating from avoidance. They're trying to bypass the very material that reveals the very truth. The real cultivation doesn't remove discomfort. It removes confusion about discomfort. Spirituality is not the absence of disturbance, it's the understanding of disturbance. It's seeing that peace and unrest arise from the same mind, just under different conditions. And when that's seen clearly, you stop chasing, you stop rejecting. In that non grasping, something stabilizes on its own. That's spirituality. It's not a feeling, not a persona, not a lifestyle. It's a perspective that sees things as they are without needing them to be anything else. Yeah. That's a long rant. I get it. I take a lot of time with all the material that I put up. All up to this point, further episodes or future episodes, it's a lot of material. I take out of 37 years of my cultivation practice and try to streamline it into particular concepts that are floating around in the world, and we can put them into a better perspective and clear misconceptions and really get our head straight. If you want to take on the lifestyle of cultivator of the way towards awakening their true nature, awakening to their true nature, the original wisdom, the path has to be clear. Your perspective needs to be correct. I'm not saying I have the only right perspective. I have a perspective that has taken 37 years to cultivate, break down my own mind, go through my own inner turmoil, mistakes here and successes there. And you come to different realizations as you go. Enlightenment is just not one thing or one time. It's refinement over many. Well, that's our show today. So if you have any questions, comments, or topic ideas, feel free to email me at eric@awaken24.com. It's ERIK at awaken24.com. You can visit awaken24.com itself for the latest show notes. I take our show notes and I put them into readable format so you have something to read also, adding to our videos. And all right, well, thanks for listening. Enjoy. See you next time. Peace.